All right, let's get started here. I don't want to be conscious of everybody's time here. My name is Trevor. I am filling in for Juan as your guest DJ today. Like I said, got a few housekeeping things that Juan had given me. So maybe a nice PowerPoint presentation. So I don't think I can mess this up, but I'll give it a shot anyways. This is our partner-led virtual session, efficiencies through automation. We have the majority of the day will be Roost presenting, so I'll go through these things and I'll hand this off to Cameron and Will from Roost. Anybody got any questions before we get started? All right, let's see what Juan made us. All right, just one more check, Cameron. Everybody can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
All right, I think this is going to be good. Like I said, partner-led virtual session, efficiencies through automation. Roost is going to take us through that. Idea behind the partner-led is that we engage, we ask questions, create some connections, make suggestions, things like that. But the more we communicate with each other, the better these things are, and we find real life answers versus more of a sales pitch, tailoring these things to how they fit our business and our day-to-day operations. Don't forget to join our Slack channel. We do a lot of communicating on there. If you're not on our Slack channel, go ahead and take a screenshot of this so that you can jump on there. I've seen a lot of questions or things get answered on our Slack channel. Communication between all the partners, pretty nice. So if you do not have that, go ahead and scan that and get on our Slack channel. Ooh, that was a good one. All right, things we got coming up. That first one is today, monthly webinar. And then we got, looks like the Outlaws group in Denver have their user group on the 14th. I'm part monthly webinar is Thursday, August 8th. And then our open mic where we just chat about different things or whatever come up is Thursday, August 19th. And then September, Central Mafia user group in Chicago. That's part of my group in Burr Ridge. We got a pre-event going to CompTIA and some things like that. So if you're not signed up for that, get signed up for that. And then kind of the same thing, monthly webinar is September 12th. And then our open mic discussions are September 19th. There's usually some good conversations that go on in there about pretty much anything. Anybody got any questions on that? Looks like a second slide on user groups. So the dates on those and where they're at. The Gaylord Rockies Resort and Convention Center. Is anybody in here going to that one? Is there anybody on this call?
I'll be there.
You'll be there. Cameron will? Are you coming to ours then? Are you coming to the Central Mafia one then too?
Oh no, I'll be at the Gaylord for whatever the other thing, IT Nation.
Oh, okay. IT, yeah, down here, November 6th and 8th. All right. CompTIA, free year for people that are in this group. I just signed up last week with our company and had a onboarding call. And if you're not a part of CompTIA, there's a lot of resources on that thing. And we're actually going to be going to the location for the Burr Ridge in September there. But there's a QR code here with a promo code that will get you a free year. And that I found out the free year also includes anybody in your organization. And they got access to everything from the business side of things to the technical side of things. So if you're not signed up there, go ahead and get signed up. I think this here is more of, if you got something that is worthy that you think that the rest of the group should know about. I would say let Juan know so that we can get that innovation or topic on the docket for these meetings. You know, the thing that works the best is if you got issues that you want to solve within the company or organization, bring those up. And we do that by chatting, participating, and asking questions. Roost, Cameron, and no Nathan, we're gonna get Will, right?
That's right.
All right. Does anybody got any questions before I turn this over to these guys? I'll try to answer them the best I can.
Yeah, real quick. Did you say that you get an onboarding call with CompTIA?
Oh, I did.
Okay, just curious. Thanks.
Larry, are you mad about that?
No, it sounds wonderful.
I could even give you the gentleman's name that did the onboarding. He was great.
That's good to know. I'm excited for Roost.
I feel you're kind of upset about this. All right, Cameron, are you going to take it from here?
I will. Thank you very much, Trevor.
All right.
And thank you all for the opportunity. Today, I'm just going to be talking about automation. I'm the team lead for sales at Roost, so my nature is to pitch products, but today I will not be doing that. I will just be talking through sort of the trends that we see in the automation space. And I'm going to do that with kind of a Christmas story approach, where I'm going to be talking through automation past, automation present. We're going to spend most of our time in the present, and then some guesstimates about the future of our industry in relation to automation. I'm excited to see the number of people we have in here, even though I just lost 2 for some reason. Because I think that this is a good number for open discussion. So really, if anyone has questions at any point, I invite you to just raise your hand or unmute and jump in, and we can have a discussion around any points. I think automation's a fun topic of conversation because it's new or at least it's new in a lot of different regards in the last year or so. I was one of the first reps at Roost. When I joined the organization, we were still trying to figure out how to talk about automation with MSPs. And so we started just by asking a lot of questions. And it was funny because initially the conversations I had with MSPs are like, so what are you doing for automation today? And I would just hard stop. We already have automation. Oh, okay, great. And I knew how automation worked in enterprise. And it didn't look anything like how MSPs were working, right? Because in large enterprise, you usually had a few automation engineers, and then you had a few techs managing a lot of different people. And in MSP world, if you look at like the ratio of users to techs, it looks completely different than the enterprise, right? There's a lot more techs per user in MSP land. So I knew there was room to wiggle, but it was a hard discussion to break into until I learned the right questions to ask. Because of this, like, oh, we already have automation. I think a lot of the confusion came from people who had, tools that were named automate, right? Because we already have automate. It does everything we need. So when I asked additional questions, right? Well, what are you doing for automation? Usually it would be, well, we do automation through our RMM. And then when I'd ask follow-up questions, and what I learned to ask was, do you have like a secret trove of PowerShell scripts that's being maintained? And if you got the right tech, they would just start laughing because they were the person in charge of that trove of PowerShell scripts. And the reason that I could get a giggle out of the person who's managing that is that it's not romantic work to maintain a lot of scripts across a lot of clients, right? And usually what you saw was the more sophisticated they were trying to get with their automation initiatives, the less that they would actually build, because it would take more time to maintain what they'd already built. And like Microsoft Graph blows up every 3 weeks, and that's like the primary way that you communicate to Microsoft. And so all of the scripts would have to go and get put back together. So Not to say that this wasn't an efficient way to get business done, but I think what's changed the conversation in the last few years is MSPs have started to talk to one another about process automation, which is more than what PowerShell scripts do. It's typically being able to orchestrate all of your vendors into one place, or most of your vendors into one place, so that you can actually write out full processes. When A happens, we get to B, we get to C, we get to D. So the foundation and definition of automation has changed significantly in the MSP space in the last 2 years, at least that I've been working. I have a pretty biased perspective on things, but that's what you're going to get today. So I think part of the perspective shift has been like, what can we do with automation? I think what you used to see was that most of the, so like you had a strategy where you were trying to build specific solutions to problems, and you were doing so with executions to the endpoint, right? The step up that we've taken is in orchestration is being able to manage a lot of different solutions at the same time. And what that does is it gives you a much wider scope as to what you can do, to the point where, like, I was talking recently to an MSP who's been using an automation platform for a while now, and they've gotten very sophisticated. And what they've realized was many of the products that they have bought from like the vendor halls that we all go to when we go to MSP shows were to address specific problems that can be addressed through automation. And now, like at Roost, when our pre-built workflows that we provide to our partners, we give you templates when you come on board. Those we call crates, and now they walk down vendor halls and they just point out other people's solutions, and they just say, well, that's a crate, we built that one. Oh, that's a crate, we built that one. And so they've been able to actually save a lot of budget just by replacing other solutions. That gives you an idea of like the scope we're talking about. I guess I told you I was going to spend most of the time in the present. I think that's the most relevant to your perspective. But it's been it's been a busy 2 years, and we're just now starting to spread the word. So when you look at how technology gets adopted by any market, there's kind of like a cyclical adoption that takes place. And when you get into sort of where we are at with the automation space, and specifically with robotic process automation, those are the platforms that are being introduced. We're still in the early adopter phase. It's like innovators, I think of them as way out ahead of the pack. They're sort of like the mad scientists in their garages with DeLoreans, like tinkering. When you get to with Roost, our early innovators that we saw, they were MSP aggregators. We brought on a lot of really large organizations that were able to kind of staff up their own automation initiatives. And the reason why I think they were the earliest adopters was A, they were more enterprise minded, but B, one of their biggest issues is integrating new tech. So, an aggregator's out there buying up MSPs and consolidating them all. So they're taking on staffs of techs, and they need to bring them into whatever processes are being introduced. The easiest way to bring on techs is to provide them with really cool tools. And ultimately, when you're building process automation, what you're doing is you're just handing off really nifty tools to techs that think it's cool because they're techs. And so those aggregators were able to better consolidate new businesses into their existing businesses because they were able to provide a lot of really useful tools right out of the gate. Like, I think user onboarding is the most popular across the board. If you're looking at like what process automations we're talking about, if I can give you a form to fill out and it automatically builds them an Active Directory, provisions the license for them, and has them built out in all of Microsoft systems, and that takes 10 minutes, and it only takes an approval from the tech, they're much happier with that process than what they were doing before. Because typically, your typical tech process manual is 60 to 80 steps, and if any of those steps happen and they step out of line, everybody's upset, right? So those early aggregators brought us on. We're now in that early adopter phase where we're seeing an acceleration in interest. We're having a lot more conversations than we're used to. We're like 850 partners, and there's other solutions out there. So you got to figure out, like, you're still at the early stage of the bell curve, but we're seeing an acceleration. We're having more conversations around it. And I think most of the traffic that gets driven to the RPAs in the marketplace are driven by like forum discussions when MSPs get together and talk to one another about what's working within the business. When we get to early majority, that's where enough of the market has adopted it that it's starting to change market dynamics. And so like the market will start to demand automation in this early majority. And what that looks like is costs of service will be able to come down, and the quality of service expectations are going to increase significantly, right? When you get to late majority, this is when people are starting to get forced into automating. So these are the people that didn't want to invest in it. These are the people that don't have, staff trained in it, but they realize that they've lost their differentiation and now they're sort of behind on the curve. And when you get to the laggards, you're going to start seeing, that group is going to be defined by high prices. They're going to be overstaffed, and typically they're just going to be providing a much worse service. And that's because like the through lines of automation are, when you have a process automated, it's going to happen a lot faster for your end user, and it's going to be much more accurate than it otherwise would be. And so to not have those two things in a differentiated marketplace is a disadvantage. Yeah, I mean, as you scale, if you're automating appropriately, you should be hiring less techs than you otherwise would, so that your returns to scale are much better. And I think some other metrics that you should be looking at are tech retention. We've seen that the more a partner invests in automation, the less likely their techs, like their level ones, are to leave the organization. And that's because it's hard to leave an organization when all of the drudgery's been automated away, and your alternative business is one where they don't have any automation. You have to return all the drudgery that you've gotten taken off your plate for you. And I think the other metric that you use to measure is client retention, right? Are your customers happy with the service that you've been providing? Are things happening faster and more accurately? So this is a good concept to understand, an automation center of excellence. Initially, people see automation and they get overwhelmed and they're like, I'm understaffed for this. I don't have an automation person yet. I need to hire somebody and then we can do automation. And typically that isn't how it works, right? Usually if you have a good map to success, you understand you don't need a person for automation. What you need is an internal initiative. And that's when you have an initiative, you can really start to define your automation center of excellence. Every product I've sold into the MSP space, people kind of approach it similarly, which is what they say, oh, this is really cool. Can I do it like this instead, right? And they start customizing for their own purposes. And that's because all MSPs have their own secret sauce. They all have their own industry niches. They all have their own approaches to like security and compliance. They all have their internal skill sets and what they do well and what they do different. And so whenever you see, a new vendor, you're looking to see how it can fit in with your existing model. And I think that automation needs to be exactly the same. You guys need to see automation as something that you take on internally, and then something that is an initiative that comes from within. So you guys start to identify, what are your biggest priorities? What's the cost benefit analysis that we're going to do that allows for us, to make automation make sense? So when you break apart what an automation center of excellence is, usually when you see like an automation team working, you're going to see that they're addressing like 4 primary groups of work. So the most applicable thing for automation to take care of within your organization is level 1 tech tickets. That should be fairly obvious. And that's because those are usually some things that you already have documented as an organization. So it makes it the low-hanging fruit for fully automating that process. They're typically, you're typically not taking on a new, never before had been tech and giving them a lot of problem solving. You're usually giving them lists of things to do when certain ticket types come in. And that's exactly the type of function that automation can take over completely. Related to that is the second category, which is controls. So like I've seen the MSP space in the last 10 years get drug kicking and screaming into the security controls world and the compliance controls world. You're starting to get handed checklists all the time from your customers like, hey, our insurance needs you to verify that we do these things. And so you're in that position of being like, yes, we do that. Here's a control for that. If you have a language of automation internally, you can convert those controls into like self-enforcing things. So if you look at like a large sophisticated enterprise, you'll see that most of their security controls are completely automated with rules, right? Just orchestrated across their tool sets. And compliance controls are just self-enforcing. I can't take myself out of MFA because I'll be put right back into that bucket if I try to leave it. The third category is AI. And this is a category that everybody's really interested in. I see all kinds of kind of nonsense being sold out there in regards to AI. Like the way that this all breaks out, your MSPs aren't going to be spending multiple thousands of dollars a month on an AI model that's tailored to them. Because at the end of the day, you can roll up a GPT server in Azure and you can train it on all your historic tickets and all of your documentation so that you have your own insular AI model that knows your business really well for like $100 a month. So it doesn't make sense to me that people are spending as much as they are. But with Roost, you can translate that open, GPT model directly into your ticketing system. So upon ticket creation, it'll automatically bounce all of the available information in the model, and the model will spit back like type, subtype, item. It'll categorize the ticket based on heat and scope so that it can prioritize it appropriately. It's called sentiment analysis. It can do, suggested response in a ticket. It could tell you here are the first steps to take within that ticket based on what we've done in the past. So there's a lot to be done in AI, and a lot that like a robotic process automation platform can enable for you. The last category to apply automation to within an MSP is a large category, and that's reporting. There's a lot you can do, but essentially, because a good automation solution orchestrates all of your other vendors, we can bring all that information in. The third most utilized automation in Roost is billing reconciliation. That has nothing to do with operations. It has nothing to do with tech tickets, right? It's just taking usage numbers from across a disparate set of SaaS solutions and consolidating them all into a statement and then flowing those through into a PSA agreement to a customer. But I think that's a great example of how reporting automation is helpful. It's useful. It saves you time. It saves you money. Other examples of reporting that we've seen is compliance reporting, security reporting. I've seen sales dashboards being built. I've seen compliance dashboards being built. I've seen dashboards for customers. I've seen QBR reports automatically pulled and generated across all of the customer base of a client. So there's a lot to be done, but I think within that umbrella, you've got plenty to work with. Level 1 tech tickets, controls, AI, and reporting should all be handled via your RPA. So who should do it? Well, I think an initiative needs to start from the top, and you need an idea mill and you need a builder. So an executive sponsor, somebody needs to bring this to the team, and it should come from the top. Guys, this is our initiative for this quarter. What we need to do is identify the processes we need to automate, and we need to build them. And then typically you see initial fear, and then enthusiasm as more and more sort of drudgery tasks go away. And you usually see the initial defensiveness come from like level ones, and then you see the enthusiasm come most from those level ones as well, as they start to gain leeway and start to train on better things and start to actually get to take initiative. So your champions, they're usually ultimately coming from your level ones, because those are the people that are touching the work that most needs to be automated. But I think that what you need to do is be very accepting to that initial fear, and then to show them like automation isn't here to replace employees. Automation is here to make everyone better. And I think your executive sponsor can really be the person that drives that message, right? You need somebody who has authority and enthusiasm to show that automation is here to make everybody's jobs better. Most of the questions that comes that like around the center of excellence is, who should my engineer be? How technical do they need to be? And usually it's like, if they've done PowerShell, they're more than qualified to do robotic process automation. Robotic process automation is far less code intensive, right? It's a low code solution. You're usually just dragging and drop building blocks. And I'm going to have Will just kind of show you the anatomy of an automation, just so that you can kind of understand the basics of it. But I do like to say, like, the most important thing that your automation engineer has is enthusiasm. If they have a passion to learn things, then typically, they'll build a lot more. From a technical prowess standpoint, I really just say they can't be allergic to a command line. They can't not be comfortable typing something in. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but a lot of people get to the prompt where they actually have to format data and say, hey, I'm pulling it out of this solution, I'm putting it into this solution. And they're like, whoa, I didn't know what I was signing up for. I'm not that technical. It's like, well, we just have to learn how to use brackets, and then you're good. So usually if they're not allergic to command line, they're more than qualified. They just need to understand really the stack of solutions that you're going to be automating with. They need to know what your PSA is doing. They need to know how it functions. They need to understand RMM. They really need to understand the crux of documentation and which fields are really important. And they need to understand, basic distribution stuff, because usually those are the things that will be tying together with Microsoft stuff. And the more you know Microsoft, the better, because that's really like the lifeblood of a lot of automations, is like Microsoft Graph, Microsoft Azure. I feel like I've said a lot of words in a row at this point. Are there any questions around what I'm talking about? You're a silent group. I'm not used to that. I'm going to take silence as enthusiasm. I've proactively answered all of your questions. I'll throw a graph at you, see if that works, to spurn some questions. I don't know if you guys know the webcomic XKCD, but they actually came out with a great graph around automation. If you look at how often you do a task and you look at how much time that task takes, you can easily understand how much time you could actually justify automating that task. So if you're doing like a 30-minute onboarding and you have to do it once a day to get a new user functioning, you can justify 5 weeks of work to automate that, assuming you're going to be doing it for 5 years. Just think about the tasks you do 5 times a day, right? You can justify half a year. So there's some pretty easy cost-benefit analysis that you can do internally when you're trying to figure out what it is that you need to automate. And luckily, your PSAs are typically giving you some really good feedback on exactly how much time each task is taking. So when you're evaluating this and you're trying to figure out, well, how do I get a return on investment with a tool that I'm paying for but not necessarily charging my client for yet? I think what you need to do is look internally and try to figure out exactly how much time you're spending on tasks that are essentially drudgery once you understand that automation can take them on and get them off of everybody's plate. So you gotta get together and you gotta define, who are the stakeholders, who's going to benefit from this, who's my executive that's going to own it, who's going to build it, and then you need to prioritize. We figured out at Roost that this isn't always an easy part where you're trying to figure out what to take on first. So I've got a team of experts that actually walks every new partner through this process of because usually what you do is you find some really high volume, tiny tasks that don't take very long to be easy wins and to get your entire team's buy-in. Nobody likes manual password resets. So if you can automate that first, everyone understands the anatomy of a password reset. And so just giving them a link where they can click, they can fill in the relevant information, hit go, and then it's all done for them. And they didn't have to open up 3 different browser tabs to get it done. Usually they're pretty bought in. And then as you mature and your engineer gets better, then you can start handing them more and more complex processes to automate. So before I pass this off to Will, to just do a quick kind of anatomy of an automation, so you understand the building blocks that I'm talking about when I'm talking about process automation in general. I just wanted to leave you with 3 quick questions for your own organization. What platform do you build on? Who's the person that wants to own the actual building itself? And how soon can we get them certified? Those are good questions to ask internally so that you know sort of when is the right time to kick off the initiative itself. Will, are you still with me?
I am still here.
You want to just show them the building blocks and an easy example, some of that low-hanging fruit we're talking about?
Sure, let's do it.
Awesome.
All right. So
hey everyone, this is Will. He's my engineer.
Yeah, thank you, Cameron.
And you can tell just by his voice that he's trustworthy.
Yep, I am over in the UK. It's 8:30 my time at the moment, and can you hear me? Okay, my headphones sound very, very odd. Can you hear me? Okay, Cam? Okay.
Yeah, you're coming through just fine.
Okay, fantastic. Normally I can hear a bit of feedback in my AirPods, but it feels like I'm talking to the wall at the moment. All right, so very quickly, Roost is an automation platform designed to convert your mundane, manual, time-consuming processes into automated workflows, saving you money, giving you happier customers, and ultimately more time to focus on doing the things that matter, such as growing your MSP. So we essentially integrate all of your tools into Roost. So think your PSA, your RMM, your documentation platform, and many others, so that they can all talk to each other and so that you can build your own kind of custom automations from there. Now, to help bring this to life and to talk through a very simple use case of Roost, I'm actually going to start with a service desk ticket. So I imagine this is a kind of ticket that you're all very familiar with, a request to modify the group membership for Ryan Howard in 365 to add the group all except HR. Now, this is not a difficult thing to do manually. It probably takes 5 to 10 minutes from start to finish. That's assuming that you've got the correct information from the customer in the first place, which they never send you, and assuming that you don't need to go and get approval. But let's assume you've got all of that information. You can then log into Microsoft, find that user, Ryan Howard, and you can go into the Manage Group section, find the group, apply it to the user, go back to the ticket, and close the ticket. Now, I'm not going to do that manually today. Instead, I'm going to introduce you to one of the ways you can use Roost to reduce the length of time it takes to service tickets just like that. So one of the features you get with Roost is a form builder, and these forms dynamically integrate with your different products. So in this case, we're integrating with Microsoft through their Graph API. So really simple, all I have to do is find that user, Ryan Howard, select the group from the drop-down menu, and if I tick this box, it'll update that existing ticket. If I leave it unchecked, it'll create a new ticket. Now, the great thing about these forms is you guys can use them, or your techs can use them to service tickets as and when they come in, or your customers could access these forms. So your customers could authenticate and essentially self-service with requests just like this. Now, before I press submit, I wanted to introduce you to the workflow in Roost that underpins that form. So this is a very, very simple workflow. So essentially, when we submit that form, I'm not sure what's happening to my screen. Let me reset that. When we submit that form, it's going to trigger this workflow, and it's going to run through these different actions. So you can see at the top, we've got an action for adding a user to a 365 group. This form can actually do 3 different things. So when we check this box to add a user to a 365 group, it's going to trigger this action, and it's going to transition down through this arrow onto the left-hand side. So the first thing we're doing is using these actions to get users and groups from Microsoft. Then we're checking to see if a ticket number was provided as part of that form submission, i.e. did we tick this box or not? If we did, it's going to update that existing ticket. If we didn't, it's going to go ahead and create that new ticket inside your PSA. And then finally, we make the change in Microsoft, and then again, we automatically update the ticket to say whether the change was successful or not. Now, this is an example of a very simple workflow. This is actually a workflow that you get out of the box. There are 150 different pre-built automations that we call crates available inside the Roost platform. And even though this is pre-built, you can, of course, modify it. So a common modification to this workflow would be something like adding an approval step, where instead of just automatically making the requested change, we might want to send an email or a Teams message or some other communication to a designated approver so that they can press yes or no and allow the workflow to then automatically continue. But you'll also notice on the left, I've got a whole bunch of different integrations. So this isn't all of our integrations, but it is most of them. It's just the ones that I've turned on for this demo account. So for example, if you wanted to include some ConnectWise PSA actions into this workflow, we've actually integrated the entire ConnectWise API set into the Roost platform. So all of the endpoints that they make available, all of the actions associated with those endpoints have been made available in like a nice human readable format to make it really easy for you to modify workflows or even just build your own workflows, even if you don't often work with APIs or do scripting yourself. So for example, if I wanted to add one of these actions, I'm looking for the create service ticket action. I can simply drag this over onto my workboard. And then if I wanted to build this into my workflow, I can simply drag and drop from top to bottom to define the flow. So it really is just a case of dragging and dropping. Now, once you've built your workflow, you can do other things as well, such as run completion handlers. So completion handlers allow us to do other things post a successful or unsuccessful run of this workflow. So you might want to use that as an opportunity to run a different workflow to do something else, or even just to check that that workflow completed successfully. Now, we only looked at form submissions as a trigger, but there are in fact over 70 different ways that you can trigger a workflow inside Roost. So form submissions obviously require you to complete that form and hit that submit button, and that's going to then trigger the workflow. But we also have a bunch of triggers associated with ConnectWise PSA as an example, and many other PSAs as well. So essentially when something changes in your PSA, we can use that as a trigger to automatically kick off a particular workflow. I'd say the most common example there is probably when a new ticket comes in. When you select that trigger, you can also define the criteria. So if you're looking for particular types or certain data within that ticket, you can define that criteria, and then you've built a way to autonomously kick off that workflow without any interaction at all. So just so you can see this one working, I'm going to delete that action so that it doesn't ruin the workflow. I'm going to jump back and hit that submit button. So I can see that the form has been submitted successfully. So essentially this workflow has now been triggered, and Roost is running through those different actions. And you can check on the status of that by reviewing the execution summary. So I can see that this has already successfully completed, and it took just 12 seconds to do so. You can see all of the inputs and all of those outputs have been successful. So essentially that change has been made in Microsoft, and we've updated the ticket to say that we've completed that work for you. Now, obviously, that was just a very simple example. Making a group membership change is not a particularly difficult or time-consuming thing to do, but it could be one of 100 different ways that you could, or one of 100 different things that you could choose to automate with the Roost platform. And to help you with that, we have nearly 150 different different automations available. So essentially, every single one of these tiles reflects a different automation, and they're all categorized by product.
So chat is where you're comfortable asking questions. Any other questions?
Kevin, when you build out, let's say, a new user setup or onboard a new user, and you got 100, over 100 different customers or clients or partners, you build that out per user, right? But you use some of the same things that you've already created. You don't have to recreate everything each time, right? Correct?
Yeah, so the structure of a workflow with Roost is going to be different than many solutions where you have to build a separate automation for each of your customers. With us, you use a master workflow, and then you map the unique organizational variables of each of your customers into that workflow. So like the pre-builds that Will's showing are built to work, regardless of what PSA you use and regardless of what documentation platform you're on. And then you just map you like fill out a quick form for each of your customers in order to get it access.
Makes
So
sense.
user onboarding is like the most complicated of that. I asked Will not to show that one because it gets a little bit overwhelming, but maybe if we have time, we could walk through it. But yeah, basically you fill out a form that allows us to authorize into their environment, and then we can customize them. So like if they're Active Directory on-prem, we know that we need to deploy PowerShell scripts locally into that environment in order to get them configured. If they're in the cloud, it's easier, and we'll just go straight to Azure and configure them there, and then it goes down and we'll actually check that individual CSP tenant to see if there's a license type available, and if not, then we'll go to your distributor, and the distributor will pull the appropriate license type before we configure that person. Jason, I see your
so
little
you'll actually go to disti for a license to add.
Assuming you're with a disti that has a sufficient REST API. REST APIs are always the limitation that we hit.
And so that's a good question. Sorry, Jason. Real quick, the distribution APIs, are you guys adding those all the time? Let's say a partner has somebody that you're not currently. Are you guys approaching these distributions and saying, hey, can we partner with you, or
Absolutely. But we've got most of the MSP centric ones.
Jason?
Yeah. So I had asked a question about like if it uses pods and stuff. I mean, one of the things that we're really looking for organizationally, as well as I think universally within the MSP space, is you got help desk guys, and they're constantly having to bounce between different applications or different environments, and the goal is to really kind of keep them within the ticket, right? On their ticket or on the machine doing the work that they need to do. But the end result is like we want them staying in there. And so like you're saying that it's like ConnectWise PSA uses pods. Is it using the API to build out what the questions are that you need to answer? Is it presenting itself in a way that allows us to select and choose options within the pod in order for it to write back to Roost and continue on with the job? So there's other, just for clarity, there's other AI, quote unquote AI solutions that are out there that are presenting that, right? you also have Sidekick that you're dealing with too, right? So Sidekick ConnectWise product is an AI solution that allows us to do automation within the ConnectWise PSA. And so it's just like, how does Roost kind of connect into the ticketing, so that we keep our guys engaged in the ticket as opposed to having to bounce to 5 different places to do the work.
So you look at most of the PSAs today, and you look at what those PSAs are able to do in a dependable way, and that's your limitation. Like even with pods, you have to keep it really simple, or you run into dependability issues like right away, where it's like there's like errors and fields. Most of our partners opt to just like embed a link to a form based on customer and ticket type, because they can just click it, they can complete the form, and they can submit it, and there aren't dependability issues.
Okay.
And that's just where we are today.
Yeah.
That's what we see. And
Yeah.
that's not a problem unique to ConnectWise, but it is a problem.
Right. So yeah. So really, you're presenting a workaround by presenting a link so that the person working the ticket doesn't have to search for or go to a secondary page, right? I mean, again, I think everybody is in agreement here. Like you want to keep the text in the ticket. You don't want them bouncing around. So whatever we can do to keep that control.
And you want to keep things streamlined. Like I've seen the demo of some really interesting chatbot features that are essentially just using a chat prompt to complete a form step by step.
That's right. Sure.
Why are we taking more time to get this done? The ideal is just to have a form, at least the ideal as it stands right now with today's technology and API access, is just to have a form that is integrated into your client's tenant, so that every drop down is just a poll to real information that they click on and then submit.
Okay. Thank you.
Candy.
I'm going to take it a little bit off topic, and if we need to take this on the sidebar, I completely understand. So I work with Matrix with Juan, and so
Excellent.
What we're looking for is more around our client advocates and our QBRs, our business reviews. Does your platform also provide those type of templates and reporting and things of that nature?
QBRs are tough. So what we have pre-built in Roost is the things that we know we can put together in a way that will be appealing to most MSPs, right? The problem with something like a QBR is it's going to be hyper specific to your business. You're going to want it presented in a certain way.
Right.
Can we do that? Yes, absolutely. And I can pull data from wherever you need it, and I can consolidate it into an Excel spreadsheet, or into an Azure table, or into a self-hosted SQL database. And if you want that information pulled, like it doesn't have to be a QBR anymore, you can provide that information on a weekly basis, because that's just the cadence that you set, and it automatically sends to them. But can we do it? Yes. Do I have what you're envisioning pre-built? Not likely. I do have like compliance reports that you can pull that are pre-built, and those are existing crates. I know that billing reconciliation pulls into like a consolidated statement. I'm trying to think. There's other reports. They're just not coming to me right now. There's like 150 pre-built templates. So I don't have.
Do you guys have assessments in your portfolio?
I know
the risk assessment, or
the compliance one. I don't remember what framework it uses, but it's one of the more common frameworks, and just like runs across the environment to see if they're within line, and it just like gives you the play-by-play by endpoint. I think that's what you mean when you say assessment. Yeah, okay. And I've given Juan that list, and I maybe I'll resend it to him, but I can just send the list of crates in the pre-built workflow, pre-built marketplace, and you can just scroll through and pick out. It says what solution is necessary, how long it'll take to implement, how much time it'll save to run.
Seneca?
So I I was really excited when we got started because I actually hired a developer to start doing this stuff for me
Nice.
in May. And everything you were saying was what we were doing. We started with new onboarding processes, and he's using Graph API.
Nice.
And then you threw a wrench in my head when you said you could also grab from, say, Ingram Micro. I'm sure that's got to be one of the resellers you're integrated
It
with,
is.
because
Yep.
I didn't even know that was a possibility. So can you describe to me what you would need or in order to be able to procure a license, attach it to the right client, and assign it? I get the graph part. We've already got that automated, but I didn't know we could reach into Ingram and do that portion.
Oh, we do a lot more than that. That piece is easy. But yeah, so it's the after part that's, to me, is the most interesting. But yeah, so you would authorize us into your instance, and then you would authorize us into your client's Microsoft environment as well.
Okay. Yeah, the client side I get with we do that all the time. So we're Trend Micro partners, we're ConnectWise partners, we're Ingram Micro partners. We're partners with a lot, and most of those APIs I was familiar with. So if we can authorize you in Ingram, I'm trying to decide now, do I stop my tech from, I'll be, straight up blunt. He's currently becoming a graph wizard. And he's a
He'll
PowerShell
really
pro.
like once Graft is maintained. Like, I've got a robotic
Yes.
operations center,
Uh-huh.
and like I made a joke. I don't know if you got, but it's like how it blows up every 3 weeks. Like, that's
Yeah, I
actually
caught that.
happening in the real world. So if you can maintain every action that you're actually building with, then you don't have to go back and fix everything,
Gotcha.
because the action that you build, the building block that you're using to put it all together, doesn't blow up.
Okay, perfect. And last quick question. Are we all getting the t-shirt that you're wearing? Because I like it.
You can get it at shows, although I think we just updated it.
I don't even have one of those.
Come on,
t-shirts yet.
Cameron. T-shirts for everybody that stuck around to the end.
I can find a t-shirt for you.
All
What then we got new ones though. I don't remember what it's. I'll look it up. It says
Jason, you still got your hand up, or is that?
he's just waiting until I give him a t-shirt. Then
Yeah.
Seneca had one. Maybe.
No, that was me that was talking a minute ago.
Oh, okay.
You answered
Sorry.
my question.
Jason. My wires were crossed.
Anybody
General
else?
cost,
Say again.
the general cost.
It's just we approximate your size, and then there's a monthly cost. Roughly how many users do you have? I can quote you.
So Cameron, with that, feeding off of Jason's question there. So, I mean, in my opinion, this is about, taking repetitive actions or potentially solving reoccurring issues that, are mundane, right? And
Yeah.
half the battle is coming up with what these solutions are. What am I trying to fix, or what am I trying to, and when you're a Roost partner, then do you have access to say, hey, this is a problem I'm fighting with, my L1 and my help desk, or my level 1 guys, or this is a problem I'm facing here. Do we have somebody to look to say, hey, yeah, we can help you generate that solution?
Yeah, I mean, if we did if I was pitching Roost, which I can drop some resources in the chat. I'll send you the list of the pre-builds that we have. Those are the crates. That's 150 ideas of what could be automated. I can also send you our YouTube channel of partners presenting what they've built in the platform. So we have like weekly community calls where MSPs come together and they share ideas about what they're automating and how it works. So I can send you snippets of that as well. That's a helpful place to go. Between those two resources, you should have 200 good ideas of what to automate.
And that led to my next question was, that's half the battle, is identifying what can I identify out of my organization that needs automation or problem solving.
So you're going to measure me by one metric typically, and it's time saved. Like on a monthly basis, how much time did my automation initiative save? And usually we see it addressed in sort of stages. Stage one is like, I need to get a return on investment. I just bought a new tool. I'm going to, focus on these things that I know. I know exactly how much time I'm going to save on them. I know what my hourly is. I'm going to get to a positive ROI. And that's like a blitz that happens. And then once you get there and you've knocked out a lot of the lower hanging fruit, that's really where you start to lean on your center of excellence. You start to lean on the people that are enthusiastic about automation, and they start to identify the things that they want off of their plate. Like, oh, this could be automated. This could be automated. We've seen people who use ConnectWise Manage just drop a button on the side of the screen that says automate this. And then it just acts like a vote where every time a new ticket type comes in, the tech has the option of just like clicking a little, yep, this should be automated as they go through their motions. And then what you end up with is a priority list. It's like 50 times this month, people said that this ticket type needed to be automated. Maybe we should take a look at that, right? So that's one way to address it. Usually once you get the low hanging fruit done though, right, it just becomes about like self-reinforcement, and you get a cycle where you're getting continuous new ideas on how to streamline. At some point, it becomes less about streamlining and it becomes more about ticket contextualization, where it's just like by ticket type, what information do we want to proactively provide in the notes of that ticket? I got a server down. I want to drop whether or not outbound DNS in that environment is working, because I want to know, is this a network outage or is this a server down? I also want to know, are there other endpoints within that environment checking in my RMM instance? So I'll go pull that information. So as the ticket is being generated, it's also, there's additional information being dropped in, right? And that saves time. It's a little bit harder to quantify, but it'll help you address those tickets in a more mature way. Eventually, automation becomes about, how do I better serve my customers? What am I doing? What am I not doing today that I should be doing now that we have this automation tool in our tool belt? And once you get there, you're not tracking time saved anymore, right? This is just about like the lifeblood of my business. And this is how we talk to one another about how we do business. This is about maturing as an organization without further burdening my techs. I've got a 1,500 user MSP. So like mid-market in the growth stage, but like, they're not blowing it out of the water by any means on the sales side of things. 1,500 users, they save 7,500 hours a month in Roost. That number makes no sense when you compare it to like the total number of hours their entire staff works, but it's because they're doing a lot of things that they wouldn't otherwise do. They're syncing all of their systems on a daily basis just to make sure all of the data is synced to metadata and is true across PSA and documentation and graph. Every time they drop a FedEx tracking number in a ticket, that ticket automatically updates every time the tracking number updates, so that their ticket automatically has the most up-to-date information on where that shipment is. Like good ideas like that. And so if you go and you look at the YouTube channel I'm sending you, you might get intimidated because it's people that have already trained on our platform talking about the platform. So sometimes they're like, we don't know this language. You shouldn't know the language yet. I haven't trained you on it. But go through them, click on the idea you're most enthusiastic about, just scroll through the list and be like, that's something we hate. Click on it and then figure out how somebody got it off their plate using a robotic process automation platform.
Okay.
I just realized I'm up on time. I'm going to skip
Yeah.
future, but I am going to give you this. This is a gift if you want it. This is
That's the t-shirt.
my CEO's automation maturity model. So if you just like scan it with your phone or whatever, you'll get this, which is just how to think about automation internally so that you can judge where you're at. You want to be at level 3. It's of interest, it's a leave behind. I'm also going to drop 2 resource links in the chat just in case you guys are interested. Thank you for your questions and thank you for hearing me out. I hope this was worth your time, and let me know, if anybody wants to talk. We can have a more structured conversation that focuses more on Roost than just automation in general.
Yes. So Cameron, what if you could send also the informational link to Juan so that he can get this out to the entire group?
He has them, but I'll send them again.
Yeah, just kind of poke him on that to see if we can get that out to everybody.
I will.
And then if somebody wants to move forward or speak with you further or in depth, what's the best channel or way to get it a whole, is it
If you
or
jump on
who?
our website and you go to contact, you book directly on our calendars and we'll just have a conversation. The initial conversation is often like 15 minutes long, but then we'll do like an hour long where we'll walk through the entire platform and we'll get much more technical than we did today.
Okay, if there's not any other questions, I don't want to hold everybody. I want to keep it to that hour. Appreciate your time, Cameron and Will.
I'll stick around in case there are other questions.
Okay,
But yeah, thank
All right.
you guys so much for hosting us.
appreciate all your time, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Hey, Cameron, I've got a question if you're sticking around for a second.
I knew there was going to be one straggler.
There's always one. So we're looking at Roost through Pax8 right now.
Excellent.
And getting ready to pull the trigger, frankly. But I've actually got a call with them next Friday, but I figured if I'm on this webinar, I'd ask you. So their marketplace, let me pull it up here and get the exact verbiage. You mentioned the billing model. And it's not our users, correct? It's our clients' users.
Right. We're trying to gauge how much, like how many people your help desk manages. And there's nuance there, right? I have access to imperfect information. So I know how many RMM agents you have deployed, which is imperfect because that's not users, but it's going to include servers and all kinds of things. Sometimes also endpoints don't reflect user counts. Like at a hospital, you'll have like one station and 50 users. But the other thing I can see is 365 licenses.
Yes.
And oftentimes that lies harder because you resell a bunch of stuff or you have co-managed clients that you sell Microsoft to, but you don't actually manage them from a help desk perspective. So it's a trust but verify. I have two numbers that tell me if we're in the ballpark or not, and then you give us the true number.
Okay. Okay. So we're at about 4,000 endpoints.
Cool.
365 stuff I'd have to combine. I'd have to get a report and pull that total, but by my math, that looks like there's a tier 3,501 to 5,000. That would probably put us in that tier.
Yes.
Maybe that's what it sounds like. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I've kicked all the tires. I've watched all the YouTubes. I've looked at everything, and the platform looks awesome. So, we'll probably just have this call with Pax8, see the next steps with that, and then we'll get rolling on the platform.
Sounds good.
What's the first thing we should do? Get the platform, and what's
as
number
soon
one?
as you click go, you're going to immediately get an email from us that says book time with your customer success rep.
Okay.
Get on their calendar right away. And like usually that dynamic is I get calls. They're like, why does this person keep calling me? I'm like, their job is to make your time saved go up. So they're just going to start throwing ideas at you. Listen to them because they'll prioritize your whole onboarding for you. They're going to be like, don't do that one first because that one takes a few weeks. Like do this one because it'll take 15 minutes and then you have a tool to pass off to your team. And now they trust it because it works. And so the second time you hand them a tool, they're going to be more likely to use it. And, you know, sometimes people are like, no, I'm not using any new tools. I hate that, even though they're technologists. That just happens. So we try to set you up for success. And they also kind of will be able to look at your stack and tell you exactly, you know, if it works or not.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. Well, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Yeah.
Well, since no one else is talking, I'll chime in.
I'm just hanging out.
Yeah, you had mentioned a YouTube link about the community uploads or things that they had solved. Can you provide a link to that, or is that something that's internal?
I think I sent it, didn't I?
Did you? I must have overlooked it.
Did I not? Oh, it doesn't look like I did. I thought I did, but I did not.
I'll admit, I've been checking in on you guys and following you for a little bit, We met with some of your team down at MSP GeekCon, and this platform is absolutely something I'm very interested in. We've got some other tools and stuff that we're working on now that we've deployed and didn't complete onboarding of, or don't have fleshed out exactly the way we want it, or we haven't finished our own internal documentation for yet. So we've kind of put a moratorium on obtaining new tools for the time being until we, level up our own internal stuff. But I don't know.
We get a lot from
Sorry,
people.
someone
It's like,
walked in as I was
oh,
talking.
it's okay.
But yeah, this is absolutely a tool that I think that we should utilize and utilize extensively, because automation it's the way to go with things. Honestly, they're doing everything manually 70 times across the client base is, old hat and not scalable.
A nice thing about this like robotic process automation platform thing is that it doesn't have as limited a return on investment as most things. What you should expect to see in your initiative is your time saved rise at an exponential rate. Like once you have your center of excellence defined and you're doing that feedback loop of like people providing good ideas, and then there's building, and then there's executive buy-in, and then like it goes around in a circle. As soon as you see that, you should see an acceleration on time save.
Mhm.
And like I don't know any business owners that aren't excited about compounding value. Like, typically, it's just drilled into us early on in life. And so, do you like me month 1? Maybe I should give you a couple cool tools. Do you like me month 12? Yes, your business should be changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're aware of that. It's just, like I said, we've got some self-imposed restrictions on things at the moment that we're
Totally understand.
working on. I did have a question though. One thing that we think is a pretty interesting idea, and I don't know if you guys do it or not. I don't think I asked the guys that we met at MSP GeekCon. Do you guys have? So let me preface it this way. Let's say we say that a Active Directory or Office 365 password reset takes 15 minutes for a technician to perform. Do you guys have metrics that we can tie to that automation that will report in a PSA and say, oh, our automation saved 6 hours this month, or whatever the case may be?
Whoa, my computer's completely. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, cool. I don't know why everything just shut down. Yes, so every automation that you build, you will be asked to provide an estimate to how many minutes it'll save when you run the automation.
Okay, great.
And our dashboard is very uncomplicated in that it just has the sum of all of your workflows run times those estimates. Yeah. And so there's one value there, and it's time saved per month.
Can that be broken down by tenant and then per time frame as well?
I think so. I don't know it that well.
Because it would be interesting if we're doing QBRs or a monthly report or something like that, to say that we spent technicians spent X number of hours performing tasks for you this month, and our automated processes performed X number or Y number of hours of tasks for you this month.
Yeah. I think all of those values are provided. I just don't know if they're on that dashboard.
Okay.
But you can get granular. You can get a rundown of every workflow run, and you should be able to see by tenant.
Okay, great. That's pretty much the only question I had about it. I enjoy seeing all the crazy, cool, and awesome things that you can do with this platform, and it's one of a couple that I'm very interested in pushing forward on at some point in the future.
It's exciting to me our team ships. We got app platform up and running Q1 of this year, and like the dashboards and everything that people are building are nuts. Like
yeah.
Not only am I going to be your automation platform, I'm going to be your customer portal. I'm going to be your internal portal. I'm going to be how you invoice. Like there's a ton that we're going to be able to take on, and
Yeah, that's
it's
awesome.
It's exciting.
Yeah, because well, even internally, our invoicing process is still not completely manual, but there is some manual aspects to it, just because of the way some of the stuff in PAX 8 doesn't port over correctly, or some of the stuff in our other portals doesn't port over correctly. And so, if you guys have tie-ins across the board for all that, that would be excellent. Of course, we'll cross that bridge and deal with all the specifics when the time comes. But it's a
Well, let
pretty
us know. I think
exciting
you're working
concept.
with Zach. He's one of my guys. So you let him know when you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we will absolutely do that. Don't know when that time is, but
Well, what I'll tell you is don't be the guy who's like, we don't have our processes documented well enough to do this yet. Because every time I call that guy 6 months later, he's like, oh yeah, I was going to do that. Wasn't I? Like having the language actually enables you to build the process a lot of times.
yeah, absolutely. And there's also the fact that if we go through and build processes out under our current um, methodology of performing tasks, a lot of that would change with a platform like yours.
Agreed.
So then we're reinventing the wheel after the fact. So a lot of it is our internal documentation that we're creating is revolving around tools that we already have. We've ran into some issues where, although there is some documentation out there, technicians aren't exactly following it to a T,
Right.
and making poor decisions that, from a security standpoint, kind of leave us hanging in the breeze, so to speak. And we're trying to shore that kind of stuff up.
Makes sense to me. Well, Mark, don't hesitate to reach out if you got any more questions.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if Ross is still here or not. If he's waiting with a question, he's very patient.
No, it was just waiting to hear the tail end of what he had. That's
Cool.
That's an area that I find I get hung up myself on trying the interdiscipline on getting documentation in place. I haven't seen your platform really, but I'm going to go do some more digging on it.
Cool. Yeah.
For this.
Happy to talk anytime.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Our problem with it is, we signed on 7-8 clients last year, which from a scale perspective is our biggest year by far.
Awesome.
And from a business perspective, great. From finishing all the stuff that we were working on, that sucked.
Right.
Because we had a lot of internal projects that basically just came to a halt. Because it was
right.
And some of the clients that we signed were fairly sizable as well. And so doing a full onboarding and all of that entails was difficult to do, especially when at one point we had 3 clients that we were onboarding at the same time. The overlap was that close. And this year, drastically slower by comparison, but we've signed 2 fairly large clients this year as well. So the work hasn't stopped, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you really wish you had automation 3 years ago so that the scale up, you'd be able to,
Yes.
do it without the headaches.
Absolutely.
Nice.
But internally we're not there yet. So
let us know.
Absolutely, sir. All right.
Have a good one.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you again for your time and for showing off your platform again. And I'm going to check out these YouTube videos here because that's some cool stuff already. Just scrolling through it.
Yeah, it's fun. That's why I just click on the ones you think are interesting. Then you can kind of get the context of how it all works.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Thanks, sir.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.